To the outside world, and to the 75,000 followers of Juliana Hayes' Instagram account, at Jules Hayes Designs, life was a seamless tapestry of minimalist elegance and sun-drenched success. Her grid was a masterclass in curated perfection. Here was the sprawling, glass-walled modern home in the affluent suburbs of Austin, Texas. Its interiors a symphony of muted grays, warm woods, and strategically placed fiddle-leaf figs, all designed by her. Here was Juliana herself, or Jules, as she was known, a woman of 34 who looked sculpted from the very marble and steel she favored in her designs. She was tall, with a curtain of ash-blonde hair, a disciplined yoga-toned physique, and a smile that was both warm and impeccably controlled. Here was her handsome, charming husband, Ben, always looking at her with a look of pure adoration in their perfectly staged, candid photos. Their life was the envy of their social circle and a source of aspirational fantasy for thousands of strangers. They were the ultimate modern power couple. Jules was the visionary, a rising star in the world of interior design, whose work was a fixture in glossy magazines. Ben, a year older, was the charismatic sales director for a burgeoning tech company, the affable, easygoing counterpoint to his wife's intense focus. They had met in college, a classic story of the ambitious artist falling for the charming fraternity boy, and had built their empire from the ground up. But a perfectly curated image, by its very nature, is a lie. It is a story told by deliberately omitting the messy, unflattering truths. And the truth of the Hayes' marriage was becoming increasingly, dangerously messy. The first cracks in the facade were financial, and they appeared with the subtlety of a hairline fracture in a marble countertop, invisible to the casual observer, but a glaring imperfection to the one who knew where to look. Jules, whose entire career was built on meticulous budgeting and flawless execution, began to notice small but jarring discrepancies. A joint credit card, used for household expenses, was declined at the specialty grocer. When she questioned Ben, he was breezy and dismissive. "Must be a glitch with the bank, Han," he'd said, not looking up from his phone, his thumb swiping frantically across a screen filled with bewildering green and red charts. "I'll sort it out." He did sort it out. But then other things began to happen. The contractor for their new pool installation called Jules, his voice tight with frustration, mentioning that the last 2 payment checks from Ben had bounced. Ben, when confronted, was a whirlwind of apologies and charm. He blamed a payroll error at his company, a temporary cash flow issue, and promised to fix it immediately, which he did by making a large wire transfer from an account Jules didn't recognize. Jules, a woman who controlled every element of her life with a fierce precision, felt a disquieting loss of that control. Her unease was amplified by Ben's growing obsession with his phone. He had always been a tech guy, but this was different. He was secretive, angled the screen away from her, his moods swinging in violent correlation to the cryptic charts he watched with the intensity of a battlefield general. He spoke in a new language, a jargon of bull runs, altcoins, hodling, and diamond hands. He explained with the feverish excitement of a convert, investing in cryptocurrency. "It's the future, Jules," he'd said one night, his eyes alight with a manic energy she hadn't seen in years. "This is our ticket. I'm talking generational wealth. No more chasing clients for you, no more quarterly targets for me. Just freedom." Jules was skeptical. Her wealth was built on tangible things: property, design contracts, the solid, measurable value of her talent. The idea of pouring their hard-earned money into invisible, digital tokens that could lose half their value overnight struck her as a form of sophisticated gambling. "Ben, how much have you invested?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "We need to be careful. We have the mortgage, the loan for the business, the pool." "Don't worry about it," he said, waving her concerns away. "I know what I'm doing. You handle the beautiful world, Jules. Let me handle the finances. Trust me." And because she wanted to believe in the perfect life they had built, she tried to trust him. She tried to ignore the way his face would go pale and clammy when he checked his phone in the morning, or the way he would suddenly be in a euphoric, expansive mood, promising her a new Tesla or a trip to the Maldives. She was living on a volatile emotional stock market, her husband's moods a direct reflection of the price of Bitcoin. The second, deeper fracture was not financial, but emotional. It was an infidelity not of the body, but of the spirit, which soon became one of the flesh as well. As Ben descended deeper into the crypto rabbit hole, he grew more distant from her. The charming, attentive husband from the Instagram photos was replaced by a distracted, irritable stranger. Their conversations became transactional. Their intimacy dwindled to a perfunctory, passionless routine. Jules first saw the name Chloe in a notification that flashed on Ben's phone as it lay on their bedside table. "Chloe, you were amazing last night. Can't stop thinking about you." The message was a punch to the gut. Jules felt the air leave her lungs, a cold dread seeping into her limbs. She confronted him, her voice trembling, holding up the phone with the incriminating text. Ben's reaction was a masterclass in deflection and gaslighting. He didn't panic. He laughed. "Chloe? Oh, God. Han. She's just a friend from my yoga class," he said, his expression one of pure, innocent amusement. "She's a bit of a free spirit. That's just how she talks. It's not what you think." He explained that he had started going to a new yoga studio to de-stress from work. Chloe was just part of the yoga tribe, a group of people he was friendly with. He made Jules feel foolish, jealous, a shrew for even questioning him. He was so convincing, his denials so smooth, that she found herself apologizing for her suspicion. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it began to grow, a poisonous vine wrapping itself around the foundations of their marriage. She started to notice other things. The late nights he claimed were client dinners that didn't appear on his corporate expense report. The faint, sweet scent of sandalwood, a scent completely alien to her own world of clean, minimalist aromas that sometimes clung to his clothes. His newfound interest in things he had once scorned. Vegan restaurants, indie music, art walks in the trendy part of town. He was living a secret life that did not include her. The breaking point, the moment the hairline fractures shattered the entire marble facade, came on their 12th wedding anniversary. Jules had planned a perfect evening. She had cooked an elaborate meal. The dining room looked like a magazine spread, and she was wearing a dress he had once told her he loved. Ben came home 3 hours late. He stumbled in, his tie askew, reeking of alcohol and sandalwood. He had forgotten. He had completely, utterly forgotten their anniversary. "Ben, where have you been?" Jules asked, her voice dangerously quiet, the carefully constructed evening collapsing around her. "Work?" he slurred, fumbling with his keys. "Big deal closed. Had to celebrate with the team. Your boss called me at 7, looking for you," she said, her voice like ice. "He said the deal fell through this afternoon. He said you left the office in a rage before lunch." The lie hung in the air between them, ugly and undeniable. Ben's face, which had been slack with intoxication, hardened. The charm vanished, replaced by a cornered animal's snarl. "So what?" he spat, his voice dripping with a venom she had never heard before. "You're checking up on me now? What am I, a child? You have to control everything, don't you, Jules? The house, the furniture, my schedule, my whole damn life. I found this in your gym bag," she said, her hand trembling as she held up a receipt. It was from a small, boutique hotel on the other side of town, a place known for its discretion. It was a charge for a room and room service for 2, from the previous night. The night he had claimed to be working late. The fight was explosive, a hurricane of accusations and recriminations that tore through the perfect, silent house. All the unspoken resentments, all the swallowed anxieties of the past year, came pouring out. He confessed, not remorsefully, but defiantly. Yes, he had been seeing Chloe. Yes, he had been lying. He painted himself as the victim, a man suffocating under the weight of his wife's perfectionism. "With her, I can breathe," he yelled, his face contorted with rage. "I don't have to be Ben Hayes, husband of the amazing Jules Hayes. I can just be me. She doesn't care about money or what the house looks like. She actually likes me, Jules. Not the idea of me. Not the photo of me for your stupid Instagram. The cruelty of his words was a physical assault. But the worst was yet to come. In the heat of the battle, his final, most devastating secret was revealed. "And you want to talk about money?" he screamed, his voice cracking. "You think a bounce check for the pool is our problem? We don't have a problem, Jules. We have a catastrophe. I was trying to fix it. I was trying to win it all back for us." He confessed the scale of his crypto losses. He hadn't just invested their savings. He had taken out a second mortgage on their beautiful, perfect house. He had taken out high-interest personal loans. He had leveraged his stock options from his company. He had chased his losses, doubling down again and again in a desperate, frantic gamble to make it all back. And he had lost. All of it. "How much?" she whispered, the fight draining out of her, replaced by a hollow, sickening dread. "Ben, how much have we lost?" He wouldn't look at her. He stared at the floor, a broken, pathetic man, his drunken bravado collapsing into a heap of self-pity. "Everything," he mumbled. "And more. We're in debt. Deep debt. Probably close to $2 million. $2 million. The number was so vast, so incomprehensible, it didn't even seem real. Their life, the house, her business, the carefully curated perfection, it was all an illusion. A house of cards built on a foundation of catastrophic debt and digital lies. The fight ended. There was nothing left to say. Ben stumbled upstairs and passed out in their master bedroom. Jules did not cry. She sat alone in her perfect, silent dining room, the uneaten anniversary dinner growing cold on the table. The woman who had meticulously designed and controlled every facet of her life had just learned that her life was not her own. It was a sham, a stage set for a play written by a fool and a liar. The love she had felt for Ben, the deep, foundational love of 12 years, was gone. It had been eroded by the months of distance and suspicion, and now it had been utterly annihilated by the revelations of the night. In its place, something new and terrifying was beginning to form. It was a cold, quiet, and exquisitely clear emotion. It was hatred. She looked around at her beautiful home, at the life she had built. He had not only betrayed her with another woman. He had set a fire to the foundations of their entire world. He had taken her future and gambled it away on a digital fantasy. As the first rays of dawn began to filter through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air, a single, chilling thought solidified in Juliana Hayes's mind. Ben was not a partner to be divorced. He was a flaw in the design. He was a structural weakness that threatened to bring the whole building down. And flaws, in her world, were not tolerated. They were eliminated. The days following the anniversary cataclysm were a masterclass in psychological warfare, fought in the chilling silence of the glass-walled house. The explosive rage of that night had cooled, solidifying into a thick, unbreathable atmosphere of mutual contempt. They were two prisoners, trapped in the beautiful cell they had once called home, bound by the crushing weight of their shared debt and the public facade they were forced to maintain. Ben, sobered and terrified by the consequences of his confession, attempted a campaign of pathetic contrition. He left tearful, rambling voicemails. He sent bouquets of flowers that Jules left to wilt, untouched on the front porch. He made desperate, pleading promises to fix everything. But his apologies were tainted with the stench of self-pity. He saw himself as the victim of a volatile market, of bad luck, of his wife's suffocating expectations. He failed to grasp the true nature of his betrayal. He thought he had broken their bank account and their marriage vows. He didn't understand that he had broken her. Jules, on the other hand, had become a creature of terrifying calm. Her grief had been a brief, intense flash flood, and in its wake, it had left behind a landscape of cold, hard stone. The love was gone. The hurt was gone. All that remained was a pure, unadulterated, and meticulously organized rage. Her mind, once occupied with color palettes and spatial arrangements, was now entirely consumed with a single, all-encompassing design project: the complete and permanent removal of Ben Hayes from her life. Divorce was the logical, rational option. But to Jules, it was an unacceptable one. A divorce would be a public spectacle. It would mean lawyers, depositions, the sordid details of his affair, and her financial ruin laid bare for the whole of Austen society to dissect. It would mean selling the house, her masterpiece, to pay off debts she hadn't accrued. It would mean a messy, public failure, a permanent stain on the perfect image she had so carefully constructed. Divorce was an admission of defeat. Jules Hayes did not lose. And there was another, darker, more pragmatic calculation. Ben had a life insurance policy, a substantial one, taken out in the early, optimistic days of their marriage when their future seemed limitless. It was worth $3 million. Enough to cover the $2 million debt and leave $1 million left over to rebuild. To erase the mistake. To start again clean. The policy had a suicide clause it wouldn't pay out. It also had clauses that could be contested in the case of a suspicious death. It had to be an accident. A tragic, unforeseeable, and utterly blameless accident. This single, cold calculation was the switch that turned her from a wronged wife into a budding murderer. The idea, once it took root, grew with the speed and efficiency of a well-funded construction project. Her descent began, as so many modern descents do, with a search engine. In the sterile blue light of her laptop screen, late at night in her silent, perfect office, she began her research. She was a meticulous planner, and she approached this project with the same methodical precision she would a multi-million-dollar home renovation. Her search queries were vague at first, testing the waters, common household accidents, accidental deaths at home statistics. The results were mundane. Falls in the shower, kitchen fires, electrocutions from faulty wiring. Then her searches became more specific, more sinister. She used a VPN and the Tor browser, tools Ben had taught her about in his more paranoid crypto days, ironically using his own lessons in digital secrecy against him. Odorless, untraceable poisons. How to induce a heart attack. Digitalis, from foxglove plants dosage. How to disable Ring security camera without a record. Electrical wiring faults that cause fires. Combining sleeping pills and alcohol effects. She was a dedicated student of death. She learned that many common household plants were toxic. Oleander, from the beautiful shrubs that lined their driveway, contained potent cardiac glycosides. Foxglove, which she had in her own perfectly manicured garden, was the source of Digitalis, a heart medication that was lethal in high doses. She learned about the subtle art of sabotaging a circuit breaker, of creating a fault that would look like a tragic accident to a cursory fire inspection. Her professional knowledge became a terrifying asset. As a designer, she understood construction, wiring, plumbing, and chemistry. She knew which cleaning products, when mixed, could create toxic fumes. She knew the load-bearing capacity of the glass balustrade on their second-floor landing. She knew the wattage of the heat lamps in the master bathroom. Her home, her masterpiece, was now a palette of potential weapons. While she planned, she played a part for Ben. She allowed a thaw in their icy relationship. She stopped rejecting his apologies and started accepting them with a weary, martyred sigh. She agreed to try to work through it, for the sake of their history. "We can't let this destroy us, Ben," she said one evening, her voice a perfect imitation of pained sincerity. "We've built too much together. We'll get through this. We just need to be a team again." Ben, desperate for forgiveness, clung to her words like a drowning man to a life raft. He was so relieved, so pathetically grateful, that he was completely blind to the cold, dead emptiness in her eyes. He saw a wife who was willing to forgive. He didn't see the predator who was simply lulling her prey into a false sense of security. This new, fragile truce gave her the access she needed. She could now manage his food, his drinks, his routine, all under the guise of taking care of him through this stressful time. She started making him elaborate, healthy smoothies in the morning. "To help with the stress," she'd say, smiling sweetly, "full of antioxidants and good things." She began with harmless ingredients, kale, ginger, blueberries. Then she started to experiment. She bought a digital scale, the kind used for jewelry or, she noted with a grim irony, for weighing narcotics. She started adding tiny, crushed leaves from the oleander bush to her own smoothie, testing for bitterness, noting any adverse effects on herself in minuscule, non-lethal doses. She was her own guinea pig, a chillingly dedicated scientist of murder. The final straw, the event that pushed her from the planning phase to execution, was a combination of utter financial ruin and ultimate personal humiliation. Ben, in a desperate, last-ditch attempt to win back a fraction of their losses, had invested the last of his available credit in a highly volatile, unknown meme coin. He had been promised a pump-and-dump scheme by an anonymous group on a messaging app. He was supposed to get rich quick. Instead, the coin's creators vanished, and its value plummeted to zero in a matter of hours. He had been rug-pulled. He had lost another $50,000 they didn't have. He confessed to her that night, his face a grotesque mask of sweat and despair. He was a broken man, a hollowed-out shell. He had not only failed to fix things, he had made them catastrophically worse. Jules felt nothing. No pity, no anger, just a calm, clear certainty. The project timeline had just been moved up. The next day, she followed him. He had told her he was going to a job interview, a desperate attempt to find new work after being fired for leveraging his company's stock. She attached a tiny GPS tracker she had bought online to the undercarriage of his car. She watched his car's icon on her phone. He wasn't going to a job interview. He was going to a trendy, bohemian neighborhood on the other side of town. He parked outside a small, brightly painted building, a yoga studio. She drove there, her heart a cold, steady metronome. She parked across the street, and she waited. An hour later, she saw him. He came out laughing, his arm draped around a young woman with long, dark hair and a tie-dyed dress. Chloe. He looked happy, carefree, a man without a worry in the world. He kissed her, a long, lingering, passionate kiss, right there on the sun-drenched sidewalk. In that moment, any lingering sliver of doubt, any microscopic trace of their shared history that might have held Jules back, was vaporized. It was the ultimate insult. He had destroyed their life, their future, their finances, and he had the audacity to find happiness, to laugh and love with another woman in the ruins. She drove home in a state of serene, absolute clarity. That night would be the night. Her plan was a symphony of her research, a design for death that was both elegant and brutal. It would combine two elements, poison and fire. The poison would incapacitate him, making the fire seem like a tragic, accidental consequence. That evening, she was the perfect, supportive wife. She made his favorite meal. She opened a bottle of expensive wine. She listened as he lied about his promising job interview. "I made you a special smoothie for the morning," she said, placing a large, sealed glass in the refrigerator. "To give you energy for your big day tomorrow. It has a new protein powder in it. Very potent." The smoothie contained kale, banana, almond milk, and a lethally high, carefully measured dose of powdered oleander leaves and crushed digitalis, harvested from her own garden. The combination was designed to cause cardiac arrhythmia and extreme disorientation within a few hours of consumption. After dinner, she feigned a headache and went upstairs to their master bathroom. "I'm going to take a long bath to unwind," she announced. "Don't wait up." In the bathroom, she put the final pieces of her plan into place. She used a small screwdriver to loosen the wiring in the base of one of the overhead heat lamps, exposing a tiny fraction of the copper wire. Then, she took a can of extra stronghold hairspray, a highly flammable aerosol, and placed it on the marble vanity, directly underneath the faulty lamp. Her alibi was simple. She would go to sleep in the guest room, claiming she didn't want to disturb Ben. In the morning, Ben, following his routine, would wake up, drink his smoothie, and get ready for his day. An hour or so later, the poison would begin to take effect. He would become dizzy, confused, his heart failing. He would likely stumble into the bathroom, perhaps turning on the heat lamps for warmth as a chill set in. The faulty, sparking wire of the lamp would ignite the fumes from the aerosol can. A flash fire. A tragic, horrific, but entirely plausible household accident. A man, already suffering from an undiagnosed heart condition, dies in a fire caused by faulty wiring. It was perfect. She went to the guest room, took a single sleeping pill to calm her nerves, and lay down to wait. She was not a grieving wife or a woman scorned. She was a designer, waiting for the demolition phase of her renovation to begin. She felt no fear, no remorse. She felt only the clean, quiet satisfaction of a flawless blueprint on the verge of execution. The morning broke with an almost mocking perfection, the Texas sun streaming through the vast windows of the house, illuminating the dust-free surfaces and polished concrete floors. For Jules, it was the dawn of her new, unencumbered life. She had slept a deep, dreamless sleep, the sleeping pill having successfully silenced the last vestiges of her conscience. She awoke feeling calm, clear-headed, and purposeful. Today was demolition day. She heard Ben moving around in the master suite, the familiar sounds of his morning routine now imbued with a chilling finality. The shower running, the electric toothbrush buzzing, the soft thud of the refrigerator door as he took out the smoothie she had prepared. She imagined him drinking it, the sweet, fruity taste masking the bitter promise of death. She felt a flicker of something not pity, but a kind of detached, clinical interest. She was an architect observing her creation, a complex, elegant machine of death she had set into motion. She stayed in the guest room, her ear tuned to the sounds of the house. Her alibi required her to be asleep. She heard him moving about for another 45 minutes. Then, a heavy thud from the master bathroom, followed by a muffled groan. It was starting. The poison was working. Her heart, a cold, steady drum, did not speed up. It remained perfectly in rhythm. She waited. The minutes stretched into an eternity. She was waiting for the sound that would signal the end. A shout, a crash, the telltale whoosh of a flash fire. But the sound never came. Instead, after 20 minutes of agonizing silence, she heard a new sound, one that was not in her blueprint. The sound of the front door opening and closing. A cold spike of adrenaline, the first genuine emotion she had felt in days, shot through her. What had gone wrong? Had he not been feeling the effects? Had he left the house? She crept from the guest room, her bare feet silent on the cool floor. The house was still. She peered out a front window. Ben's car was gone. Panic, a messy, unwelcome emotion, began to fray the edges of her perfect calm. Where was he? Her phone buzzed. A text message from a number she didn't recognize. Her hands shaking, she opened it. 911 call received from this number. Subject, Benjamin Hayes, cardiac distress. Location, intersection of Oak Lawn and West 3rd. Ambulance dispatched. He had gotten out. He had felt his heart failing, his mind clouding over, and with his last ounce of strength, he had gotten in his car, trying to drive himself to the hospital. He hadn't even made it a mile. Her mind raced, recalibrating the plan. The fire was a bust. The accidental death at home narrative was gone. But a new, equally plausible story was presenting itself. A man under extreme financial and marital stress suffers a massive, tragic heart attack while driving. It was still clean. It was still tragic. It was still workable. She began to play her part. She frantically called Ben's phone. No answer. She left a series of panicked, tearful voicemails. Then she made the call that would cement her alibi. She called 911. "My husband!" she cried to the operator, her voice a flawless performance of hysteria. "He was acting so strange this morning," clutching his chest. "He said he was going to the doctor, but he just left. I'm so worried." She drove to the hospital, breaking every speed limit, her face a mask of wifely terror. When she arrived, a doctor with a kind, sad face met her in the waiting room. Ben was dead. He had crashed his car into a telephone pole after suffering what appeared to be a catastrophic cardiac event behind the wheel. The doctor spoke of stress, of genetics, of the fragility of life. Jules collapsed into a chair, her sobs racking her body. Her performance was impeccable. The nurses brought her water. The hospital chaplain offered his condolences. She was the picture of a grieving widow, her world shattered by a sudden, cruel twist of fate. The initial investigation was handled by Detective Isabella Harding, a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 40s with tired, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. She had seen 100 domestic tragedies, and her instinct was a finely tuned instrument for detecting dissonance. On the surface, the story was straightforward. A man in his 30s, under immense stress, has a heart attack. His wife is devastated. But as Harding began to dig, small, discordant notes began to sound in the symphony of grief. The first was the financial report. A preliminary check revealed the Hayeses were not just in debt. They were on the brink of complete financial annihilation. The $2 million figure was staggering. Harding knew that a debt that large could drive a man to an early grave, but it could also drive a spouse to murder, especially when there was a $3 million life insurance policy in play. The second was the autopsy. The medical examiner confirmed that the cause of death was cardiac arrest, but the toxicology screen revealed something unusual. There were high levels of oleandrin and digoxin in Ben's system, the active compounds found in oleander and foxglove. They were not prescribed medications. The ME noted that these cardenolides, in high doses, would induce exactly the kind of massive, untraceable heart attack that had killed Ben Hayes. It was still possible he had ingested them accidentally, but highly improbable. The case was no longer a tragic accident. It was a homicide. Harding's focus shifted entirely to the grieving widow. She returned to the Hayeses' home the next day, not with condolences, but with a search warrant. Jules, dressed in elegant black, was the picture of shocked indignation, but she let them in. Harding was a student of environments, and the house told her a story. It was a story of control, of perfection, of an almost inhuman level of order. It was not the home of a happy, relaxed family. It was a museum. As the forensics team swept the house, Harding conducted a second interview with Jules, this time in the cold, perfect kitchen. "Mrs. Hayes, we have reason to believe your husband was poisoned," Harding said, her voice devoid of sympathy. Jules's performance was, once again, flawless. Shock, disbelief, horror. Poisoned? That's impossible. Who would do such a thing? That's what we're trying to find out, Harding said, her eyes locked on Jules's. Did your husband have any enemies? Was he involved in anything illegal? The crypto market can be a dangerous place. No, Jules said, shaking her head, tears welling in her eyes. He was a good man. Everyone loved him. While they spoke, a forensics officer called Harding over to the kitchen's built-in trash compactor. They had emptied it, and at the very bottom, in a compressed cube of garbage, they had found it, the empty container of a new protein powder, and, more importantly, a small digital scale with a faint, greenish residue on its surface. Harding then took a walk through the garden. She was not a botanist, but she knew what to look for. She found the oleander bushes lining the driveway and the beautiful, bell-shaped foxglove flowers in the flower bed. The final, devastating pieces of evidence came from the digital world. Acting on a hunch, Harding's tech unit put in a warrant for Ben Hayes' phone records and for the IP address of the Hayes' home. Ben's phone revealed the affair. They found Chloe, who, heartbroken and terrified, told them everything. She told them about Ben's unhappiness, his massive debts, his fear of his controlling wife, and his plans to leave her. This shattered the image of the perfect marriage and provided Harding with a powerful, classic motive: jealousy and rage. But the nail in Jules's coffin was her own search history. The tech unit pulled the data logs from her devices, and there it was, a detailed, chronological account of her descent into murder. Every search query, every website she visited, every article she read about poisons, heart attacks, and disabling security cameras. She had used a VPN, but she wasn't a professional. She had made mistakes. She had left a digital breadcrumb trail that led directly from her mind to Ben's murder. A week after Ben's death, Detective Harding returned to the house. This time, she didn't come alone. Jules was in her office on the phone with the life insurance company, her voice calm and professional. She was beginning the process of rebuilding her life on the foundation of her husband's death. When she saw Harding, flanked by 2 uniformed officers, standing in her doorway, the mask finally, infinitesimally, slipped. For a fraction of a second, her face was not one of grief or shock, but of the cold, furious frustration of a master designer whose flawless creation had been ruined by an unforeseen complication. "Juliana Hayes," Harding said, her voice ringing with the finality of a gavel strike. "You're under arrest for the murder of your husband, Benjamin Hayes." Harding laid it all out. The poison in his system, the plants in her garden, the digital scale in her trash, the affair, the life insurance policy, and finally the damning, undeniable evidence of her own search history. Jules didn't confess. She didn't scream or cry. She simply stood up, her face a pale, blank canvas. The perfect, controlled facade now nothing more than an empty shell. She had designed the perfect murder, but she had overlooked a critical flaw in the blueprint. You can delete a husband, but you can never truly delete your digital fingerprints. As the officers cuffed her, her eyes swept around her beautiful, perfect home. It was her greatest creation, a testament to her vision and her control. And it was now a crime scene, a monument to the ugly, messy, and ultimately fatal truth that no amount of curated perfection could ever hide.